If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
People pay good money to see this movie. When they go out to a theater, they want cold sodas, hot popcorn, and no monsters in the projection booth.
Everyone pretend podcasting isn't boring.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
You asked for me. Here I am.
You want to help me?
Is there anything you remember?
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, Thaddeus Ross.
Whatever this is, Cap, be careful.
What do we know?
There were 5 shooters. This was a coordinated terrorist attack, sir.
I was a wartime general. Now I'm a wartime president.
Your inner circle's been compromised. Let me fix it.
Watch yourself. You're not Steve Rogers.
You're right. I'm not. Wait for it. We're on the brink of war. I can't trust anyone. Nothing about this feels right.
Captain America. You ever ask yourself, who's playing who?
Someone's been pulling the strings on everything.
You're under arrest. I don't want a variable out there that I can't control.
Stop!
Captain America, caught without his wings.
You like to play dress up and blindly execute the state's orders.
Don't say I didn't warn you.
What if this is a trap? You don't even know what this is.
Since when were they red?
You want me? Come and get me!
Welcome to the Projection Booth. I'm your host, Mike White. Joining me, of course, is Mr. Chris Stachiw.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. I'm angry all the time. I'm Harrison Ford.
Yes, in this episode, we are looking at Captain America: Brave New World, the latest installment of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This film marks a significant transition here, with Anthony Mackie stepping into the role of Captain America, succeeding Chris Evans's portrayal of Steve Rogers, and maybe he'll be the Human Torch also one of these days? No, that's a whole different guy.
Technically has been in Deadpool.
Oh, no, I was talking about Anthony Mackie.
Oh, boy, that'd be fun. Harrison Ford is the Human Torch? Maybe we could do that.
Harrison Ford very red in this movie, and is that like foreshadowing, or is that just bad color contrast?
When you don't trust your movie enough to hide the fact that you have the Red Hulk in it, what are you doing here, folks? I am so excited to talk about this movie. It was not something I was going to go out of my way to watch. Not because I don't care about the MCU, actually far from it. I feel like you and I at this point are pretty well invested. This is the 35th MCU movie, and I believe I have only not seen 2 of those, maybe 3. Eternals, Shang-Chi, and Guardians 3. So I've seen 32 of the 35 movies.
I guess I've seen all 35.
It's like abusive at this point. Like, we keep coming back, and they keep, I would say, before we talk about the movie with spoilers, Mike, because this is a movie people have to go out and pay money to see. Is this a movie people should pay money to go watch in the theaters? Is this an MCU experience worth enjoying? Because we're not getting just one more MCU movie this year. We're getting 2 more. Don't forget. They're back on their bullshit, as we would say.
Well, Chris, as someone who is concerned about the price of eggs in America, I don't want to tell people to go out and spend frivolously, but I'll say that I spent my money to go see it, and then the power went out at the first act turn. The power clicked off, and I was like, did I hear music? What was going on? Something so strange. And
Did we all just
it was
die?
very bizarre. I was like, is this because they made a reference to the Eternals and no one is ever to speak of that movie again? But no, I guess it's okay. So yeah, I spent money on it. I don't know, Chris, what's your opinion of this?
I think that this movie probably didn't need to exist. It was like a TV show they didn't have enough for, so they forced it into a movie that they also then feel like they didn't have enough for. Because, again, this is not a spoiler because it's been part of the advertising, but the Red Hulk is in the movie. The spoiler will be when we get to talk about how much the Red Hulk is in the movie. I would say if you're going to see this movie based on the advertising, you are going to be sorely disappointed because the way the film is advertised versus what the film is, 2 very different things. I think this movie in a lot of ways is a poor facsimile of Winter Soldier, a much better Captain America movie. I think that there are parts of this movie that are good that I did enjoy. I didn't go into this movie with very high hopes. I went into this movie with 0 hopes, if any hopes at all. I frankly went into this movie with negative expectations, given that I really... Deadpool Wolverine, I've watched it subsequently to it coming out, and it was just fine. It was just fine then, and I think we all enjoyed it a lot more because it was a Deadpool thing, but I think this movie is right back to earth with the kinds of movies that the MCU was effectively putting out before Deadpool Wolverine. I guess I have seen 31 of the 35 movies because I haven't seen The Marvels either, which is in there. The chuckle is there because it's probably just as useless of information to know that movie happened as it is with the Eternals. If they even mentioned it in this movie, which they didn't, it would have been just a 1-line statement to get out of the way of the things that are happening in the movie. All that to say, no, I do not think you should go check this movie out. I think this movie is not worth your time for the most part because in a lot of ways, it is a sequel to a movie that nobody asked for, which is the weirdest thing because in a lot of ways, Marvel and the MCU specifically has felt like it's been dodging the issue that this movie is now addressing for 17 years. And now this movie just like trundles into it head first and doesn't really acknowledge the fact that it's been 17 years. It doesn't acknowledge a lot of things that have happened since, but the things that it does acknowledge are, again, the things that are like, people have been asking for us to do something. Have people been asking for the Eternals to have any sort of information brought up? Not really. So I don't think so. No, I think this is a skip. So I think we're both on different ends of the spectrum at the moment.
Before we move on, I do want to address the whole Red Hulk thing because I was frankly shocked when I was watching the trailer for this at the movie theater a few months ago and that they were just so blatant about showing the Red Hulk because I was like, I thought that was supposed to be a surprise because the posters that I'd seen for it were the Red Hulk hand holding the shield. The other one I saw was Anthony Mackie behind the shield and a red fist coming in. So I was like, oh, that's good. They're teasing this Red Hulk thing. They're doing it a little too much with this poster of the red fist coming in, but that could be any creature. It doesn't have to be a Hulk. But then I watched the trailer. I was like, oh, okay, fuck me then. I guess this is just how we're doing this. We're going to have this big twist. I guess maybe it's not a big twist. Maybe in the movie that's revealed at the end of Act 1. No. This is an Act 3 reveal everyone already knows is going to happen. And Jesus Christ, what? Did you just have no faith in this movie whatsoever that you had to let the cat out of the bag in the trailer? Can you not create a trailer about Captain America, the new Captain America, and all the struggles he's going through, which they barely touch on? They get the one line about, I like Steve Rogers better, or whatever it was. And I was just like, I think that people would lose their fucking mind if there was a new Captain America and, God forbid, a black Captain America. Oh, geez, it's a DEI hires coming for your jobs here, white America.
Well, and then don't forget, Falcon is now also Colombian. And Harrison Ford is playing an old curmudgeonly... Oh, wait, never mind. He's playing himself. Got it.
Yeah,
right.
It's interesting. He's a compromised president, as if people have dirt on him. Maybe when he was 40, he went to Russia. Maybe. I don't know.
Let's just get to spoilers. I think if you were listening to this conversation up to this point, you're going to have made your own opinions and thoughts, and you want us to get to the point where we can talk about the movie and actually talk about the movie. But let's talk about the red elephant in the room. The Red Hulk is in the movie. And I shit you not, because I have the movie through means just like you do. The movie ends at 1 hour and 50 minutes. The Red Hulk is on screen at 1 hour and 32 minutes
I'm
in.
surprised it's even that long.
That's fucking insanity. The Red Hulk is not an afterthought. The Red Hulk has his own comic book. The Red Hulk is a massive storyline in the comic books that, again, nails what... Look, we would both agree with what they're going for. Thunderbolt Ross is a fucking asshole who deserves to get turned into the Red Hulk, because then he is no better than the thing that he has been chasing, trying to create since the first Incredible Hulk movie, all the way back in 2008. The summer of Iron Man was also the summer of the Incredible Hulk.
I would say even further back than that.
The oft-maligned Eric Bana movie, which, I mean, again, look, Ang Lee was doing his own thing. I think that movie is not a Hulk movie. It is an interesting movie, but I don't think it's a Hulk movie. Say what you will about it. It's an interesting movie. I don't think it succeeds at much, but both of the Hulk movies are better than this one. Shit, Avengers was more of a Hulk movie than this one
Definitely, it was more of a Hulk movie than this one was. We got to find that he's angry all the time, those things. Yeah, I went back and I watched the 2003 Hulk movie in preparation for this conversation, and it's so bad.
It's not like this is the kind of failure that we're so used to at this point that I'm just like, all the MCU is doing is just living up to the expectations of not doing much. That Ang Lee movie, because it's 2003 and effectively all we've really had is Spider-Man and X-Men movies, it's such a weird failure because it's such a weird movie that, yes, I agree with you, it's a failure, and I also rewatched it. I didn't dislike it as much. I was just kind of, this is weird. But it's weird in a way that, like, these movies tend to not be weird anymore. So I'm almost, again, I know you might bristle at this a little bit, but I would equate it almost to the prequel Star Wars movies are bad. They're not great, but at least they're all one singular vision from one person. The MCU at one point lost the ghost. I feel like it was post-Endgame. And they haven't been able to coalesce their ideas into something manageable since. And this movie is yet another example of that. Like, this is just wheel spinning. At least the Ang Lee movie, someone had something to say. At least that first Incredible Hulk movie was a Hulk movie. This is a Captain America movie that is, in fact, a fucking Hulk movie instead. And it does neither of those things very well. And it wastes Anthony Mackie, who I actually really like. It's too bad. He's really charming. And so is the actor who plays Falcon, who's not Anthony Mackie. Danny Ramirez, also great as Joaquin Torres Falcon. So I don't know. What a shame. That's my takeaway from this movie. What a shame.
I don't agree with you that this was a bad movie. I had some fun with it. It's not the best movie.
I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm just saying it's not worth going to see in theaters. It's better than I thought, but it's not worth going to spend money on, I think is more the issue.
I wanted to go back to Hulk 2003. I think one of the problems with that movie is that there are too many villains. Like, we have experienced that time and time again. And I think other than like Ursa and Zod and maybe the three brothers from Lone Wolf and Cub 2, there's very few times where you get multiple villains on screen where it really adds to things. I think you should aim at 2 and stop there, because you've got Thunderbolt Ross in that one as well, who's trying to stop the Hulk. You've got Hulk's dad, Nick Nolte, that very confusing character. And then you also have, and I'm trying to remember the guy's name, the guy who does voiceover commercials for Home Depot these days. Josh Lucas, yes. And he's also there. And I'm like, that's one villain too many, guys. You really should have kept this down to Thunderbolt Ross is her father, is Betty's father, and he's maybe a better father. He's trying to protect his daughter. And then you get the other father who's trying to corrupt his son, like literally he's corrupted his blood. But yeah, this whole thing of Josh Lucas in here is just, get out of here. You're the whiplash of this movie. We don't need you in this movie right now. Thank you very much.
He pulled the
Give me my board.
Oof. Mickey Rourke, ladies and gentlemen. It's like he joined us in the studio right now.
And then, yeah, the 2008 Hulk, I actually still really like a lot. I wish that Ed Norton hadn't been such a dickhead and could have kept being David Bruce Banner.
Oh, hey, I'm Mark Ruffalo. I'm a great guy. I love Mark Ruffalo. He's in one of my favorite movies. He's in Zodiac. I love Mark Ruffalo, but Ed Norton had an edge to him. Mark Ruffalo, can we just speak to Mark Ruffalo's Hulk? Is kind of a dork.
He is a dorky Hulk, yeah.
And like Ed Norton was not a dork, like at all. Like he's a dick. Like Norton is taking inspiration from reality.
Neither of those Hulks, none of the Hulks that I've seen so far, maybe with the exception of this Red Hulk, but even then I don't know, none of them could experience the whole World War Hulk and Planet Hulk storyline. That is a Hulk that is just bent on revenge and bloodshed and just enjoys violence. It's that whole thing of like him getting more strong as he gets more angry, and he just enjoys the anger and revels in the anger. That whole thing, I went back and I reread those, and holy shit, are those amazing comics.
World War Hulk is so good. So I want to talk broadly about something here that has been an MCU problem, because I was watching a lot of MCU content to prepare for this, like hours of MCU content, both movies and critical thought on the MCU's. Here's some of the biggest problems the MCU has had. And this is one of them. Microtizing the big plot lines into singular films and television show experiences. Secret Invasion was a television show. Civil War was a singular movie. The Planet Hulk was a singular movie, sort of. Red Hulk, a singular movie. These are, and the biggest one for me, and this is the one that pisses me off still, because this is the one that they not only missed it, but they missed it and it just kept going, and then they came back to it and they were like, but see, Red Skull. Red Skull should have been, like, I get we had Thanos, but Red Skull the Red Skull went out before Thanos? Red Skull's not even part of Captain America's story after the first movie? But again, like, that could be given a pass because of when it happened. Now, why are you doing Red Hulk at the end of a Captain America movie and you're ostensibly never going to return to this? Because I don't think they're going to get Harrison Ford back
to do anything. I don't think so either. We all know William Hurt passed away. He had been Thunderbolt Ross in several things.
And he never would have done this anyways. There's no universe where you would have had him doing this. I can't imagine someone being like, William Hurt, go stand over there and pretend to shit yourself like the Hulk.
I just wish that had they thought about it, they cast somebody a little bit younger and made him up to look older. Because we've had that problem where they were de-aging William Hurt, especially in that Black Widow movie.
Michael Douglas and Ant-Man.
He looked okay.
Remember when they de-aged Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War?
Yes, I do. And he looked exactly like he did in Less Than Zero.
He did, sure did. They know how to nail it sometimes.
But yeah, that William Hurt stuff was way uncanny with that. And I was just like, so yeah, get somebody a little bit younger. Or throw Sam Elliott a bone and get him over here rather than doing freaking insurance commercials on TV every half hour.
I don't understand why they took these big storylines and they make them small issues. Secret Invasion is a thing that should have been a thing that they were dealing with from day one. Like, the issue of Thanos started in Avengers 1. That was 2013, 12, 13. We're 10 years on from that, and we're how many years removed from Endgame at this point? 6 years removed from Endgame? They haven't even been able to show us a threat comparable to Thanos since. And we're barreling towards an Avengers movie within the next year and a half. The Hulk should have been the villain for the next 10 movies. You do a Planet Hulk thing and have the Avengers Planet Hulk. Because again, the Hulk went away, but they burned through it. It's wild to me how quickly they burned through things that you would think they would be like, we need to spend so much time on this and build this up and do all that. 15 minutes. Red Hulk, never going to see it again in the MCU. Wait a second here. It's fucked. It's just fucking wild. And it's the dragon with the gold problem. They have all this gold and they don't know what to do with it. And so they just squander it if they do anything with it at all.
The whole thing of Ultron. Ultron, one of the best villains that there ever has been, but they treated it so bad.
One movie.
Yeah, one movie and a really bad movie too.
I still like it only because of James Spader's Ultron. The only way to watch James Spader's Ultron is to go watch that movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's the reality of it. It's not like you can go, I want to see Chris Evans as Captain America, so I can go watch Cap 2 and enjoy it there, Cap 3. There's no other way to see James Spader as Ultron other than I think maybe an episode of What If, I think at this point.
Yeah, which is a great episode of What If.
It is, yeah. Man, what a great show that is.
And that is showing you how fucking crazy it is to deal with Ultron. That really starts, and they jump the gun so quickly when it comes to that. And I think they did a good job in the movie as far as him taking over the rest of the Iron Man suits and making those his drones rather than replicating himself, because he was always trying to be better, making a better version of himself. Hell, he made the Vision. But they twisted that. I'm okay, by the way, with differences between the comics and movies. You know,
they have more time in the comics. Like, the comics don't cost anything. You can literally have Punisher. It's the thing that's hard to explain to people that have never read comic books, and I know you read comic books, as did I. Spider-Man and the Punisher were hanging out, doing stuff all the time. The Punisher got introduced in a Spider-Man comic because the Punisher was trying to kill Spider-Man initially, and it didn't cost any money additional to draw Spider-Man and the Punisher together, but the moment we have to have a person playing the role, and then the expectation is the person's going to continue to play the role in subsequent things, we run into issues. Because we have Punisher, who the fuck knows if he's ever going to show up again. We have Daredevil, we know he's showing up again. Remember how there's Moon Knight in the MCU?
I'd rather not.
Or She-Hulk?
I sure
Remember
do.
that? Once we go into, we can expand it, but we need a person. Now it's a cost, right? Look at Blade. Mahershala Ali, never going to play Blade at this point. You couldn't convince me of that. It's not going to happen.
There's only been one Blade. There's only ever going to be one Blade.
But yet Blade is in comic books with Spider-Man, and I believe this year's big event in the comic books is a vampire thing that has to do with Blade. It was either this year or last year. Like, it's hard to watch these movies and not think to myself, if you're going to do these big crossover things, it can't just be one movie, but then you have to commit to doing multiple things. And so is it they don't think the audience is smart enough and the audience's attention span is enough? Or do they think that the audience is stupid and just that the audience won't get invested over several movies? Look at the way people reacted to Endgame and Infinity War, for that matter. Infinity War was Thanos' movie. This should have been, in a lot of ways, like a Red Hulk movie, and instead it's just a poor facsimile of Winter Soldier with Red Hulk slapped on the last 15 minutes.
The nods or lifts, direct lifts from Winter Soldier were just a lot. The moment when Giancarlo Esposito is Sidewinder, and I'm trying to look up, was the whole Serpent thing, was that in the TV show? Because I barely remember the show, and I don't think it was.
If you remember when they announced Captain America 2, the fake title of the movie was Captain America and the Serpent Society. And so that is them finally making good on that with this movie, is them putting him in it. For 3 scenes, give me a break. When were these all reshoots on top of everything else? Like, they don't even feel like they exist in the same framework of a similar movie. The best part of this movie is almost the epilogue of the TV show. Like, it's the stuff with Carl Lumbly, with Isaiah Bradley. Like, it's when they go to the White House. Like, some of that stuff is genuinely interesting. Most everything else is just like Winter Soldier, but diminishing returns.
And that's where the blackness of the story actually comes through. And you're like, oh, wow, okay, this is great. I'm so glad that they're bringing the Isaiah Bradley character into this. The whole Truth miniseries that they had going, what was it, Red, White, and Black, I think might have been the title of that. That was fantastic. And to see him, and he's just, yeah, they experimented on me for all these decades, and that's why I'm not out there busting the bad guys or anything, because the government fucked me over completely. And you go into the back room of his gym and he's got Jack Jones and all these other black athletes and stuff. I'm just like, yeah, this is great. I'm like, I want the poster of the 3 guys at the Olympics with the 2 guys with the fists raised and everything. It's like, yeah, you get him, Isaiah. This is fantastic. But yeah, they just drop that. And then, yeah, like you said, the scene with Sidewinder where he's blowing up the car. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is totally the Winter Soldier. There's another couple, the whole thing of having the secret facility, Camp Echo, I think they call it. I'm like, oh, is this the moment when Toby Jones is going to show up on the computer screen? No, it's when Tim Blake Nelson finally shows up. And I'm like, oh, cool, Tim Blake Nelson. I'm so glad that he's in this because I always wondered what happened with Samuel Stearns. And also him getting the raw deal as well. This whole movie is about the way that presidents abuse power because he's also been abused by this president, by Thunderbolt Ross, where he's just, hey man, you promised me I'd get out. Even the thing where they're like, oh, we have the man in custody who created the abomination. I'm like, he did that on your orders, Thunderbolt Ross.
That's in the credits of the movie. They say that they have the person who did that in custody. So they spoil the twist of the movie in the beginning of the movie on top of everything else, like straight up. Again, they ruined the twist of this movie in the advertising. They should not have advertised the Red Hulk at all. And look, here's the thing. If you and I were sitting here and they had not advertised the Red Hulk at all, we would have gone into this movie going, there is a more than 0% chance that we see a Hulk Harrison Ford in this movie. You have to see it up until the movie, though. And yet they ruined it. And I don't think they trust the audience. I don't think they trust the public anymore. I think that Disney and Marvel don't trust that people will just go see their movies to see their movies. They have to see something they've never seen before. And a CGI Harrison Ford running around as the Hulk, as much as I've never seen it before, it is ultimately like that little piece of metal on a fishing lure. It is just there solely to bring your eye in, but it serves no purpose other than to get you on the hook. And once you're on the hook, it's too over. Once you sit down in the theater, they have your money. And these movies are not upholding their end of the bargain anymore. And they haven't really since Infinity War and Endgame, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I want these movies to get back to where they were, where it's like, this is a thing that people are invested in. This is a thing where when Endgame and Infinity War came out, you were like, I'm going to see this, and don't ruin this. This is the thing. I'm not saying we're all sitting and ruining these movies now, but when these are coming out 3 by a year, it's not as exciting. It's not as much of a thing. What is this going to be bad so that Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four can pick up the slack? Okay, and also shit in and of itself.
The idea of having a February release of a Marvel film, I think really started back with the Black Panther movie. And that was fantastic because you got the introduction to Black Panther in February, and then I think it was June when they ended up doing the first Avengers, the Infinity War. And I was just like, that was amazing. That was so smart to give us Black Panther then, and then, because we already saw Black Panther in Civil War, so we knew that this character, but to really give him his focus, and that was such a good movie to have, and then to bounce off of that into the Infinity War, and I was just like, oh my God. And then when Black Panther returned to dust at the end of Infinity War, there were people in the audience that were just like, no, oh no. And it's just, wow, he really made such an impact on people that they were like upset that he was gone. I thought that was fantastic. I thought it was really smart. And I think that they were trying to cash in on that same goodwill by having another February release here. And I know they did it 2023 with that piece of shit Ant-Man Quantumania, which might be one of the worst of these movies. It's really tough. It's a race to the bottom between that and Love and Thunder, I think. And then Eternals is right there.
Don't say Black Widow, that's for sure.
I enjoy Black Widow. I enjoy Shang-Chi. I've seen that several times now. Nice appearance by Emil Blonsky in there as the Abomination. He's much more comic accurate in that than he was in the 2008 film. And I also liked his appearance in She-Hulk as well. And it was really nice that it was Tim Roth coming into She-Hulk. I thought that was fantastic. But to go back to the otherness of this as well, like, I mean, they pretty much tell us that something is going on with Ross And we know as the audience, because we've seen the trailers now, and like they're telling us, though, in no uncertain terms, that something is wrong with him when he's on that, I believe he's on a ship, and suddenly we hear Stearns' voice in his earpiece. And I'm like, first off, I'm like, is everybody hearing this? There's no sort of like static, and then he taps his ear or something, but he has Stearns' voice in his ear, and he's basically egging him on, and it's let out the rage. He's basically the emperor at this point. Good, feed into your anger, all that kind of stuff. He starts to potentially change. I'm like, oh, okay, so we're just going back to the Avengers. You're ripping off yourself. Like, you've ripped off Winter Soldier, which is probably my favorite of all the MCU movies. And then you're ripping off the Avengers as well. And I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, like, can you be a little bit more original with this? And it's like they even mention at one point where Sam's, oh yeah, I had a friend who was controlled by trigger words. And that's the whole thing with Stearns playing the Mr. Blue song is everybody's triggered. And I'm just like, how did he get into all these people's heads so quickly? I guess must have talked with all of these guys or somehow like through his leader powers. I don't know, but it's like there's a good movie in here someplace, because the whole thing of the very first line of the movie is, have you heard from my daughter? And it's this whole thing of like him wanting to reconnect with Betty. And then he starts to bring up the cherry blossoms. And then you have the Japanese prime minister. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. You were tying in the whole thing of back in, 1912, when Japan donated all of the cherry trees to Washington as a symbol of goodwill because of the help that we gave them in the Russo-Sino War, or no, Japanese War. And it's just, oh, that's really cool. And he keeps talking about the cherry blossoms. And, hey, Betty, we can walk through the cherry blossoms. This is not my observation. This is one that I got from the pitch meeting for this. I love Ryan George's pitch meetings. And he brought up the idea of, why isn't it Betty who shows up at the end and talks him down?
You don't think there's a cut of this movie that has Seth Rollins, the wrestler, in it, that he talks about, like, they cut me out of the movie. Like, I was in it. I was on set. They cut me out. I am telling you that this movie, again, I'm not saying it like verifiably. There were reshoots. That is a verified piece of information that has been well documented. There were reshoots as recently as a couple months ago with this fucking thing. I've got to assume that there's a version of this movie where she was going to come out at the end and go to some extent in a Black Widow-esque direction with the interaction between her and Red Hulk. And instead, we get, again, what feels like someone going, did we need Liv Tyler? Was she on the call sheet for a reason? Oh, we still got that raft set lying around? All right, let's just have her in that for a minute. And it genuinely feels like, did you see Exorcist Believer?
No.
There's a scene at the end of Exorcist Believer where it's, is that you, Reagan? And it's, there comes Reagan walking through the door, and it's, movie, come on. You can't, it's like the last 30 seconds of the movie. This does the same thing. Because Liv Tyler should have been the main female protagonist of this movie, almost. Like, the fact that she's not in here, and we get Zosha Rockmore as Layla Taylor, otherwise known as a character that they're not going to actually have in this movie as the character.
They never call her Sabra, yeah.
No, they don't. Interesting choice, Disney. I don't know what that's all about. Yeah, I'm shocked that Liv Tyler's in this movie at all, because if she's going to be in it, she should be in it more than she is. And if she's going to be in it this little, she shouldn't have been in it at all.
I know. I was actually surprised that she showed up, because they just had that like stock photo of her from the 2008.
The great photo.
They just had that. And then they had her voice at one point. And I love how she's, oh yeah, I should have called after the assassination attempt. I'm like, you think you should have called after the assassination attempt that was all over national news? But no, you chose another time to call. I'm like, really? Come on here. Yeah, that was bad. And instead, with the ending, it's Sam's there. Hey, Mr. President, calm down. Sun's going down, big guy, that kind of thing. And then he ends up punching him again, and it turns into another fight. And then how's it end? Hey, Mr. President, you really need to calm down. And it's, oh my God, we just did this 5 minutes ago. But now it works. Now he becomes little old Harrison Ford with this. And Harrison Ford, I just wonder sometimes, I'm like, Why are you still doing this? Are you doing it for the money? Because it just feels like he's not having a good time. Like, I like Harrison Ford a lot, and I just feel for him, and I'm just like, I wish you were having as much fun being you on screen as I do watching you on screen, because I think you're fantastic, and I've been watching you since I was 5 years old, and just really enjoy every single time you show up on screen.
This is the same man who was Indiana Jones. I have to remind myself of that. It, for me, was the reason I wanted to watch this movie. Because, to your point, I'm a huge fan of Harrison Ford. Indiana Jones made a large impact on me as a child. Han Solo, similarly. Harrison Ford is an actor who, if he's in something, it's probably going to be more interesting by having him in it because he's an interesting actor. This is a weird movie because we have a giant 8-foot-tall CGI Harrison Ford as the Hulk on screen. We can never unsee that. However, they do so little with it. It's like, okay, what the fuck? This is such an interesting concept. Why do so little with it? Why waste this opportunity with the Red Hulk? Because you know what? Red Hulk's not coming back. I might fucking eat my words, but I feel confident because it took him 17 years to bring back Tim Blake Nelson. 17 years.
And I'm sorry, I'm a huge Tim Blake Nelson fan. I love him so much. And I was secretly hoping when I read somebody posted, like, this isn't that great of a Captain America movie, but it's a pretty good Hulk sequel. I was like, oh gosh, does that mean Tim Blake Nelson is coming back finally as Samuel Stearns, the leader? I've been so excited for this. And he's barely in it and he's barely visible. And when he does show up, I'm like, yeah, this is great. You are the one. When I'm talking about having 3 villains in this movie, and basically there's Sidewinder as one, there's Sam Stearns as another, but then you've got the president as well. But then I like the idea of that Sam Stearns created that monster, but he doesn't create him to cause destruction. He basically creates him in order to embarrass himself and like to get called out for what a piece of shit he's been to all of these people over the years. Then he kind of gets away with it. Like they end up putting him in the raft and everything, but I'm like, what's the fallout for America? Is that the next movie? But yeah, that just seemed very strange. But yeah, I love...
No, it's all very tidily wrapped up in that scene where it's, we're glad you stepped down, Mr. Like, I wanted to see the fallout. I don't know how to put this, but we had the White House destroyed. Take this step back because we've run to the end of the movie. We have at the end of the film, Harrison Ford as the President of the United States, as the Red Hulk, destroying the White House. Crashing through the White House, smashing through the White House, fighting Captain America on top of the White House. Couple things. The sequence should have been way more awesome than it is because it's pretty boring. This should have been Chris Evans fighting this Red Hulk. If we had anybody fighting the Red Hulk, it should have been Chris Evans. And if we didn't have Chris Evans, it should have been the Hulk fighting the Red Hulk. Why is it Captain America as Anthony Mackie fighting the Red Hulk? Because the Hulk's still around. We know he's still around. And then on top of everything else, this is the last 15 minutes of the movie. This should have been like a half an hour thing. This should have been an extended sequence. And yet it feels like such an afterthought. And all of it should have been way more bombastic and explosive than it is. But I guess the Hulk jumping past the Washington Monument and destroying it is just not exciting. We're so jaded as CGI viewers, that's not exciting anymore.
Kind of reminds me of that John Mulaney skit. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
It's like there's a horse loose in a hospital. I think eventually everything's going to be okay, but I have no idea what's going to happen next. And neither do any of you, and neither do your parents, because there's a horse loose in the hospital. It's never happened before. No one knows what the horse is going to do next, least of all the horse. He's never been in a hospital before. He's as confused as you are. There's no experts. They try to find experts on the news. They're like, we're joined now by a man that once saw a bird in the airport. It's like, get out of here with that shit. We've all seen a bird in the airport. This is a horse loose in a hospital.
We've talked a lot about a lot of things, but we haven't talked about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which to the show, the idea of a TV show of Falcon and Winter Soldier worked for me because those characters aren't big enough to support a movie for me. And it was more like this almost buddy cop, uneasy relationship between those two characters and everything. And I was like, their whole thing, I think that was in, which one was that? Was that Civil War, where it was like, can you move the seat back? No, I can't. Like those kind of things. Like I enjoyed that whole banter that they have. And I enjoyed it in the TV show as well. The whole thing with them and what was the name of the villain in that one?
Zemo? And he comes back in the TV show.
Yeah, he's very much in this TV show, and I thought that he was really good there. But then it's like, there's not enough of them for a movie. And just also the whole idea of, and they bring it up in here, and they even have that line towards the end, Bucky was full of shit, I should have taken the serum kind of thing, because it's, yeah, you're a regular dude. Like, no offense to you, Anthony Mackie, but to the character of Falcon, he's a regular dude. Not enhanced whatsoever, never has been. He's very much like Hawkeye, Black Widow, where they can do these amazing things, but this guy's getting fucking hammered by the Hulk. And yeah, he's got the new vibranium wings and everything, and he's got the vibranium shield, but this guy's insides are probably jelly. Like, just to take that abuse, how are you even doing this? It's just not to, again, be like a little kid who's just like, oh, what happens if the Hulk fights Galactus, those kind of things. But it's like, you always have to think to yourself, like, what is this guy's powers? What can he do? He's really good with that suit, man, which I guess is Iron Man, but Iron Man's got a lot more padding and a lot more suit to cover him than Sam does.
I think about the line from Avengers.
Big man in a suit of armor. Take that off. What are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
It's hard to have just a guy as the guy, right? I think when I think about the MCU, I think about wrestling, and the people that are always in charge in wrestling, the guys that are the ones that everybody think of, are always bigger than life. And Anthony Mackie, and I like him as Captain America, but the role of Captain America is so much bigger than life than any one person could step into. I think it's almost unfortunate to call him Captain America, because it feels just like they're trying to hang a lantern on the fact that we all know that there was another Captain America. And I'm not saying we need another Captain America, but do we? I like that Anthony Mackie is Captain America. I like that a black man is Captain America. I do like that. I don't think that this movie likes that. I don't think that this movie pays attention to it enough. The TV show tried to make sure that we understood how much of, maybe not a burden he feels, but he definitely feels at odds with the fact that Captain America is supposed to represent the country. And yet, I'm sure I know that there are plenty of African Americans and black people in this country who do not feel represented by the way this country has treated them.
There's your Isaiah character right there.
Right, exactly. But it's afterthought. We'll talk about it, but then put him in jail the rest of the movie. And just have them doing a Winter Soldier, like, pantomime, like Punch and Judy. It's like $400 million to do this? No creativity. The only creative idea is the Red Hulk at the end of the movie. And even then, we're complaining about them not going back to the thing we expected them to do with it. Because if they had done the sun's going down, big fella thing, we might have... No, I don't think we would have complained about that, because that would have made perfect sense within the framework of the movie to have Liv Tyler come back.
And maybe to make him seem larger than life, that's why they cast Shira Haas in there as Ruth Bat-Seraph, because that lady's only 5'2". She's so tiny. And there's shots of her and Bucky and Cap, and I'm just like, oh my God, she barely even comes up to like their nipples.
I liked her performance. I liked her a lot.
I did too. I just wish she had more to do. And like you were saying, like as far as a lead female character, I don't think this movie has one, because she's barely in this. She does some good things, and I like that she's very smart and really helps save, especially Isaiah. But it's just, yeah, give me a little bit more here. Give me something more of her at the end or something. But
why introduce a character who is so obviously, she's a Jewish superhero, but they're not allowing that to be the character?
They say now that she was in the Red Room or whatever, the whole training thing for Black Widows. And I'm like, okay, then be a Black Widow. Show up and kick some ass at the end. I was just saying that Natasha will go toe-to-toe with the Hulk, even though she's not powered. Where was Sabra here? I would have liked to have seen that.
Black Widow had no fear. They should have had Gal Gadot in this movie. Everything's better with Gal Gadot. The greatest of the Israeli actresses, Gal Gadot.
I was already having a hard time because of Sam Stearns and his head. I was glad that they didn't make his head bigger because I was just like, oh, he's starting to look like Hector Hammond from the Green Lantern movie.
That's the thing we want to remind people of is a awful DC movie. What was that? DCEU? Thank God we don't have to worry about that anymore. Good Lord. No, it's just the DCU now. And actually, maybe I'm going to give James Gunn an opportunity to change my opinion on DC movies because Marvel definitely not doing much here. This is not my observation, but this is an observation worth making. Martin Scorsese complained about these movies being theme park rides. I think that this may be that. This is very soulless. This feels very corporate-y. This feels like a decision made with a bunch of people at a table. Everybody going, we can't have it be too black now because then that'll offend and isolate and make people in middle America not feel good. So they're not. It's Black Panther was a pretty fucking black movie. I watch that movie at least once a year to remind myself that is a very well-made MCU movie, almost to the detriment of the movie that it's an MCU movie because Ryan Coogler elevated a lot of the MCU tropes a lot further than anybody else has, even if at the end of the movie, it's a yellow-suited guy fighting a purple-suited guy in a CGI background, which I guess they were always going to be because they're MCU movies. But for fuck's sake, the soundtrack for that movie was performed at the Super Bowl this year. Kendrick performed a song from that film this year at the Super Bowl, which means that movie made a rather large impact on black culture. This movie, which should have been making a similar impact because, like you mentioned, February, everybody, it doesn't want to even embrace the fact that half of the cast is black. Giancarlo Esposito, Carl Lundley, and Anthony Mackie are three of your leads effectively in a MCU film, the largest franchise of franchise films to come out.
And then you have a black director as well, but Julius Onah is a strange director choice for this for me because like he and all of the screenwriters, I don't think any of them had any other superheroes before this. I think one had worked on the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show, but that was it. And then this guy, I'm sorry, but it's going to take me a long time to forgive this director for the Cloverfield Paradox.
One of the great bait and switches of all time. What a miserable ass movie.
There's a new Cloverfield movie that's coming out right after the Super Bowl. Man.
Shadow released movies, and the movie was bad.
Oh, it was so bad.
And this is not like an opinion that, you know, when the movie came out and I haven't watched it since. I watched it like in the last couple of years. Still completely just a mess from the start to the finish, all the way down. The movie's a mess. Because it just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, when I saw his name attached, I was like, why?
And also to talk about ripping off themselves and other superhero films, that the end of this movie, the thing that finally triggers the president to turn into the Hulk, to actually show his true colors, is a recording of a phone call that they had. And I'm just sitting there going, I'm going to play this town like a harp from hell. I'm like, this is Batman Returns right here. Like the whole thing of the Penguin having goods on the mayor and everything and running for mayor and having Max Schreck behind him and all that stuff. I was just like, so this is it? You get mad at this phone call. Okay.
Hey, just relax. I'll take care of the squealing, wretched, pinhead puppets of Gotham. I didn't say that. You gotta admit, I played this stinking city like a harp from hell.
The whole thing of this is coming out in February of 2024, and you're talking about Black History Month and all this, and it's just, yeah, I don't think Black History Month is going to be a thing next year. I wouldn't be surprised if Juneteenth gets repealed this year. It's just, it's getting that bad. And yeah, I know they didn't make this when things were starting to turn to shit, but they did make this when things were turning to shit. And they really, with those reshoots, they could have really piled it on here. And I'm curious about your guy. You said it was a wrestler. I'm curious if he was another one of, not Sidewind, the Serpents.
Serpents. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Oh, I believe that he was cut out of the beginning of the film is the overwhelming kind of theory. And he's talked about it himself a little bit.
Long fight at the beginning. almost as long as the air fight, the dog fight that's going on. I'm just like, gosh, this is taking forever. And it's just shot so confusingly. I'm just like, who's where and when? And we got how many planes are up there plus 2 guys flying around? Oh, okay. Yeah. Just like they could have really handled that a lot better.
Julius Onah is no J.J. Abrams when it comes to shooting vehicular action. Because that, you know what, like for all of J.J. Abrams' problems, like those Star Trek movies had pretty good like vehicular combat. And if you have a character who's flying around in his wingsuit, that's effectively a human airplane. And you need to have someone who can shoot that action effectively or don't have it in your movie. And yeah, I was going to say that's the other thing about this movie that is unfortunate. Not great action set pieces either. I mean, in a lot of ways, like the Marvel movies are, and this is me drawing a gaming comparison, the Marvel movies are like Call of Duty at this point. Like I don't go into it expecting highbrow entertainment. I expect some bombast, some pomp, a little bit of circumstance, but these things know what they are. In a lot of ways, this movie knew what people were expecting from it, and I don't think it lived up to the expectations of being even an action movie. And again, it's a spy thing too. It's like a spy thriller because it has to be Winter Soldier because it's Captain America. Though it doesn't have to be. Like, why do that again? Why not soldier out and forge your own path, no pun intended, as its own thing? Because if you're going to do half of Winter Soldier and then half of something else entirely, just cut the half of Winter Soldier out. And don't have Sebastian Stan in your movie either, because don't remind me that there was a point where it could have just been Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie together, which again feels like a missed opportunity. That wasn't just this movie on top of everything else. He's going to be a politician now. Guy was brainwashed.
Yeah, how were they going to get past all the bad press?
I don't know. Apparently they couldn't let him be Captain America because he was brainwashed, so he's allowed to be a fucking politician. What is that saying about the world that they live in? My God.
Yeah, he did help during the Infinity Wars and everything, and I can't remember if he disappeared during the snap.
Yes. No, he got snapped away. Yeah, he did.
Oh, okay. So then they had to carry around that stupid arm for 5 years till he came back?
His arm does disappear with him, Mike.
Oh, jeez, that's crazy. That's so weird that it would.
Yeah, it would.
But then again, all their clothes disappear and stuff. So I guess like their whole body, the being itself. So I guess that's part of his being.
Oh my God, Spider-Man is just naked somewhere.
That's even part of this movie for a little while, too. It's the whole thing of him and the younger guy, the new Falcon. Okay, this is Iron Man and Spider-Man. That's how this relationship feels with the teasing and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, again, you're telling me about certain other things that I was even thinking of was it the best of the X-Men movie? Not counting Logan, but the best X-Men movie where it was, yeah, that was the second one, right? Where Nightcrawler breaks into the White House. And I just was thinking of that movie while we're in the White House here and just seeing that tiny Oval Office, which I was surprised at how small that was. And then when Thunderbolt Ross brings up the idea of restarting the Avengers, I'm just like, who would you get? Who would you put on this? And I know that they're leaning towards a young Avengers with all of these kids like Hawkeye's mentee and some of these other, like the Wanda's two imaginary kids who are now real, at least one of them is. And then there's also hints of the Thunderbolts, but the Thunderbolts, here's how memorable the Thunderbolts are. We're watching the trailer for it, and Andrea's just, okay, I recognize Florence Pugh, and I recognize Sebastian Stan, but who,
David
of course she knows David Harbour. She knows David Harbour, but then she's just, who are the rest of these people?
Wyatt Russell.
I go, yeah, that's Wyatt Russell. She's like, what was he in? I was like, he was in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Who was he?
Wasn't he like fake Captain America? I forget what he was. He was like
U.S. agent. John Walker. But then she barely remembered Ghost. Barely remember. And then she was like, and I kept bringing up Taskmaster. She's like, who's Taskmaster?
Black Widow.
Black Widow, hon. You've seen Black Widow. Oh, yeah, the girl with the fucked up face. I'm like, yes, exactly.
I am wondering if this is going to be the worst, because that's just the way we were built. Because we fucking hate ourselves also. Because here's the other thing. What is this now? Like the fifth fucking superhero thing we've watched together in a row is what it feels like, for fuck's sake, man. Like Craven and this And then Deadpool and Wolverine last year, like we cover Venom, like everything that's new feels like a superhero thing. And it's exhausting because none of them have been very good.
If it's not that, it's a legacy sequel, because we also talk about Beetlejuice and Axel F.
Those things end up being more okay than this. God, I wish for Beetlejuice. Jesus. At least that movie was halfway charming. This movie doesn't even want to be charming. I won't say it almost feels like it's throwing its hands up and giving up immediately, but in a lot of ways, by copying Winter Soldier, it almost does feel like it's just throwing its hands up and saying, we don't know what to do, so we'll just do the greatest hits of Captain America.
It is a shame because I really think Anthony Mackie deserved better.
Oh my God, he's such a good... But Giancarlo Esposito deserves to be in a movie for more than 3 scenes. Same with Carl Lumbly, same with every actor in this movie, really. Or even being cut out of your goddamn film like Seth Rollins, or having your role diminish like Liv Tyler.
I just feel so bad for Giancarlo Esposito. I'm glad for his bank account now, but he has been playing this mysterious other asshole type guy that shows up in multiple things. Like he showed up as Darth whoever the hell in The Mandalorian. And then, of course, his role in The Boys, where he's basically doing the same thing. I'm just like, oh my God, you can do other things, Giancarlo Esposito. You don't need to be this complete asshole like Mayor Cicero in Megalopolis. It's just, please, just do something else. You can do other things. Gideon, that's what his name was.
Gideon, wow. Yeah, you're right. I don't feel bad for his bank account, but in terms of critically, feels like a waste of time.
I read a news story the other day. At one point, because we've got the whole thing of Sam Stearns at the end with that useless end credits sequence.
Oh, that's not useless, though, because it's setting up everything else, Mike. You know that as well as I do.
Because he just goes, the others are coming, because that's very specific. So that could be anybody that you want it to be. There were 2 things. One was that Julius Onah said that it might have been the Illuminati, which is that. So for me, the Illuminati are Reed Richards, Stephen Strange, Tony Stark, and Steve Rogers. And those are the guys going back to Planet Hulk. They're the ones that shot Hulk into space. So I'm like, okay, those are the Illuminati. But now they're calling that big council that showed up in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness with Charles Xavier and Thunderbolt. Oh, sorry. I said Steve Rogers. I meant Thunderbolt. Sorry about that. Thunderbolt is part of that Illuminati, and then Thunderbolt is part of that Doctor Strange Illuminati as well.
Mike actually means Black Bolt, as played singularly by Anson Mount in the Inhumans TV series and Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness.
Monica Rambeau, Haley Atwell as Captain America.
Well, that's right. Captain Britain.
Captain America. Yeah, Captain whatever the fuck.
So it's like all of those people. So I'm like, and then there's another claim that it would have been a group of heroes from other worlds, like the multiverse version of them. Again, going back to What If. Remember, there was that, I can't remember which episode of What If it was, where it was all of those different versions of heroes all coming together. And I think, again,
it's the end of the first season.
Yeah, that was also your Captain Britain coming in there as well. She was the best part of that. You started off the series with her and you ended that season with her. She's fucking phenomenal.
You know what the others are, right? The others is fucking Doctor Doom.
One guy is now the other.
I don't know. The others are either Doctor Doom and whatever he's bringing, or maybe the Fantastic Four. But the Fantastic Four have Galactus in that movie. Ralph Ineson plays Galactus in the movie, so we know he's going to be there. I don't know.
I'm just glad it's not a big cloud. Again, the big cloud, both Fantastic Four and that stupid fucking Green Lantern movie again. Big fucking cloud.
Green Lantern was big space turd, yeah. This Captain America movie is better than I expected it to be, but again, I can't in good conscience tell someone to go see it because it does feel like a TV movie in a lot of ways. It feels like the closest we could get to a TV movie. If this movie had come out during the pandemic, they would have put it on streaming and nobody would have said a fucking word, is more what this is. Like, that's probably a better way to compare it now, is would this have come out on streaming during the pandemic? Yes. This would have been dumped on streaming during the pandemic, just like Black Widow was. It reminds me of Black Widow. Black Widow is a much more charming movie. I think Black Widow will get reappraised later on as being a little bit better than people expected, and I think that's because the Pandemic didn't help that movie. That movie didn't help that movie because a lot of that movie's prevised to hell. But I still enjoyed it. Black Widow is a better movie, and it is a better spy thriller than this movie is, because this movie's also trying to do some of the spy thriller stuff. And that movie, Black Widow's not doing any of the Hulk stuff, which is unequivocally this movie's weakest part because it feels the most tacked on.
The thing about the Black Widow movie, you barely remember who the villain was in that movie.
The guy from Indiana Jones, Ray Winstone. Dempsey.
But really, that whole movie is all about the family relationship. It's all about what's going on between Natasha and her estranged sister and parents and just that whole thing. And I think that's why that movie succeeds, is because of those characters and that family relationship. It's almost like they weren't able to give Sam, I think if they had really stuck more with him and his new protege and then Isaiah Bradley and somehow worked around them, but it just feels like they stepped in so many other holes along the way.
I honestly think if it had been just the three of them together on screen, this would have been a great movie. Like
the chemistry,
the two young bucks and the old guy. Oh my God, yes. That scene with them in the car is the best part of this entire movie. And everybody who made this movie probably realizes it too. Because those scenes between the three of them is when the movie really sings. Like it's really hitting a high note. It leaves a very high watermark that the movie never gets back to. That's why I think we both said it. The first act of this movie is the best that this movie ever gets. Beyond that, the second act is just Soldier, and then the third act is not good. The third act is the worst part of this movie, without a doubt. And that is the Red Hulk part. It's not that it's not entertaining, it's just consequential. Maybe I'll eat my words. Thunderbolts will come out and he'll be in the movie. I just don't see it. Harrison Ford doesn't strike me as he's coming back for anything. Maybe he will. I guess they don't really ever need him again. Red Hulk could just show up without him. It's like an Indiana Jones video game thing. He doesn't even talk anyways. You have a CGI Harrison Ford running around.
He's no Joe Fixit or anything. Yeah, he doesn't speak English. Yeah.
Yeah, he just runs around. I guess they have the best of all. Did they ever need to recast him? It could have just had William Hurt turn into Red Hulk off screen, have a William Hurt Red Hulk running around. And would that have been offensive to people to have William Hurt's visage on a CGI Red Hulk running around?
I still say they should have got Sam Elliott back. That would have been way better.
Sometimes the bar eats you, yeah. That's the other thing. They took away the mustache. Fuck you. The Red Hulk needs a mustache, assholes. You cowards. The Red Hulk had a mustache in the comics. Wasn't all the time, but he did have a mustache. MCU is less afraid or more afraid than Sony is, because in that Sony Venom movie, we got She-Venom. Like in the first goddamn movie. This movie is just a lot of safe choices, and the MCU not having a good time right now. This movie had a second weekend drop-off pretty bad, and not something that Disney wants to see, not something that they're used to with their movies not being financially successful and making lots of money. They're not used to this, and they need to turn it around. Like, they need to recapitalize on the interest and goodwill that they got out of that Robert Downey Jr. announcement last year, because I think they've lost a lot of it. Like Deadpool, Wolverine, they've clearly lost a lot because this movie's second weekend did not hit as well as the first weekend did. It had a substantial and noticeable drop-off in the second weekend.
Yeah, you're very right as far as maybe this should have just landed on streaming. I think it's way better than that piece of shit Section 31 movie that just dropped on streaming, which was supposed to be a movie, that's supposed to be a TV show, and then ended up being a TV movie that just felt like a really shitty pilot for a TV show.
This feels like, in a lot of ways, again, a TV movie. Like you said it yourself, like the characters are from a TV show. Like, in a lot of ways, this is a sequel to that TV show because it's a streaming TV show. There aren't streaming movies. I know what it is. It's a compensation thing. It's all about how they're compensated. I'm not saying actors shouldn't be compensated. If we can't figure out how to compensate them through streaming, then there needs to be better. Again, I'm preaching to the choir here. I'm sure everybody in the industry is, yeah, no shit, asshole. But sometimes some of these movies don't necessarily need to come out in theaters, is what I'm saying. And this is one of those movies. And given how expensive it is to see movies now, I can't in good conscience even say if you're going to go see a Marvel movie this year, it might have to be fantastic, because that might be the one that's of the most consequence. I feel, again, just to close this episode out, Thunderbolt, I don't know how much consequence that movie's going to end up having, but Fantastic Four almost has to have consequence to it. Like, it's being set up to be the most consequential of the three movies. So I'm wondering if at the end of our Thunderbolts review, we're not going to go, this kind of feels like Captain America, where it's rather inconsequential. Maybe there will be some big surprise at the end of Thunderbolts. There have been speculations that Thunderbolts has some sort of who is setting this up and why is all this happening is one of the big answers, right? Is it Norman Osborn? Is it who? Could be Willem Dafoe. I don't know.
We've been seeing that Julie Louis-Dreyfus character for years now.
Yeah, so I don't know, but Fantastic Four we know will be of consequence because they're going to be part of Avengers Doomsday because Dr. Doom is their Red Skull, and it's been made clear to us that Tony Stark's actor, Robert Downey Jr., is playing Dr. Doom. We don't know how or through which vehicle he will become Dr. Doom, or if we'll see him become Dr. Doom, or if he just shows up as Dr. Doom. But I feel like the needle's going to be moved more in Fantastic Four than in any of these other movies. And boy, it's really disappointing that this movie more or less reaffirms the fact that, yeah, it doesn't really need to exist. And if it doesn't need to be a big budget release, imagine if this was a TV show. Imagine if this was just a TV miniseries. Like, why did they not just do that? They already did it once. Let's just do it again.
Yeah, and that way, too, you could have introduced the whole idea of Thunderbolt Ross and his ascension to power and just all of the problems he's ever had with the Avengers and with Sam, and really stretch that storyline out and really started to tease the whole thing of him being this, that he has something to hide. He does talk about having to lose the mustache, and there's some line in here where it's just, if they knew that I have nothing to hide, I think is what he was saying. And there's even like the whole idea, was the president compromised? And you might think, if you hadn't seen the trailer, that maybe Stearns had something on Thunderbolt Ross and that he was going to use him as a pawn for something. And the whole thing of, if they start playing that Mr. Blue song, he's going to suddenly turn into a Manchurian candidate. That could have been something. That would have been a really nice red herring. But instead, just having that phone call and having him start to Hulk out on the ship and stuff, I'm like, don't even do that. Don't do that thing. Just keep this a secret. But they had to let it out in the trailers, and they let it out in the movie way too early as well. And the only thing I can see that this movie is going to have consequence on is that now suddenly, don't even ask me what Cersei, whatever the main character from Eternals was, I guess when she turned the Celestial into metal, that she somehow turned him into adamantium, because that's the only thing from here is that we now have adamantium, which now can lead us in. My wife's, how did Wolverine get his hands on that, or claws? And I was like, Stryker works for the government, and I guess maybe it must have been the U.S. government, but I always think it's the Canadian government because of Logan being Canadian.
But it takes place at that lake, yeah.
And so I'm like, Stryker's part of the whole mechanism. He can get his hands on this stuff. And again, they barely talk about the adamantium. They're just like, yeah, it's tougher than vibranium, and like it becomes the MacGuffin of this movie. And I was like, no, that's going to become huge. Like, adamantium fuels this universe. Like, for me, vibranium was the new thing when they introduced it into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I was like, I guess I heard of that in the comics, but I really heard about adamantium. And I thought that Captain America's shield was made out of adamantium. And that's where, of course, Wolverine's bones are filled with that. So I'm like, that is our entree into the X-Men again. We had Beast at the end of the Marvels, and now we've got adamantium.
That is the thing. You're right. And I guess we should have mentioned it, but at the same time, you know what it reminds me of? To go back to Ultron, you mentioned it before, and I feel like we're just piling on this movie, and we tend to not be super negative, but with a lot of new stuff, it's hard to be super positive because, again, it just doesn't feel like it's being well thought out and well made. Again, I feel like if you listen to this and you're like, these guys are being overly negative. Again, go watch the movie. It's not our fault that the movie is doing this and sitting and spinning its wheels, but I think, yeah, God, just to your point before with Ultron, in Ultron, that's where they mentioned Wakanda. And then you mentioned Ulysses' claw out of hand. And then we'll get back to this. That's what it feels like with adamantium. It's one line, essentially one or two lines, like, we found it. adamantium. It's strong, stronger than vibranium. Okay.
And that's when we needed somebody, maybe that's your end scene, is somebody coming to the new president and saying, Mr. President, I know you were asking for ideas of what we can use adamantium for. Let me tell you about this idea I have called Weapon X. There you go.
Would it have been too on the nose to do that?
I kind of wish that I wasn't smarter than these movies sometimes.
That's the thing. You're not, because the movie knows that you know what adamantium is, because otherwise they wouldn't have mentioned it. They know that the audience is smart enough to know what adamantium is, and that's the problem. So they know the audience isn't dumb. So why aren't they assuming that the audience is just smart? I don't get it. Like, you mentioned adamantium, then, like you said, go into it. Do something with it. Don't just go adamantium, Wakanda, vibranium. Don't hang a lantern. Please go more into detail. Give us something more than just the setup eventually. Because that was Kang. Eventually. Fucking Christ. Vet your goddamn actors, Marvel.
Just the way he was introduced at the end of that first season of Loki, where it's just, this is the most boring thing I've ever seen.
It was a unfortunate thing to happen that your actor is not a great person. And maybe that's why these movies have all suffered, but it's partially the reason some of the things have suffered. It's not the reason a lot of these things have been bad. These have been the same issues we've been talking about with a lot of new film, which is just creatively bankrupt filmmaking. And I don't know who these films are being made for anymore, because it doesn't feel like they're being made for me and you, because to your point, we're not that smart of comic book readers. Like, I haven't really picked up a comic book in years other than to go reacquaint myself with stuff to watch an MCU movie or to talk about it. But I'm not sitting and reading Marvel every week. And I know there are plenty of people that are. Those are the people that these movies are alienating more than us. They're the ones who are looking at these movies and going, why would I even be involved? These movies are being made for the mainstream, but the mainstream knows what adamantium is. If you're going to mention it in your movie, come on.
Very curious to see where we go from here. I'll be there first weekend for Thunderbolts. Hopefully the power stays on. It will be closer to the summer, so no snow hanging out on the lines, I hope. It was so weird what was on and what wasn't at the movie theater. There was an emergency light that came on in the theater, and then I go in the bathroom and like the little magic eye for the urinal, that was still working. Of all the useless power things right now, like all of the auto flushers are still working.
You can piss. You can still, in a universe where EMPs have happened, you can still piss.
You can piss, but you can't dry your hands because those dryers were not on the same circuit. So fuck you.
I will go and see Fantastic Four in the theaters. I'm not sure Thunderbolts is going to get me out of my house because, again, unfortunately, as much as I love Florence Pugh, I just don't see it having a long-term consequence on the storytelling of the MCU. And right now, I want to see what the broad strokes are because we're barreling towards Avengers, and that's like broad strokes the movie. And man, there's so much concern here from me because I'm just like, if this is what we're leading into the Avengers with, the lead into the last Avengers stuff was pretty strong. The lead into these Avengers movies, what in God's name are we going to get? Because I know with the Kang Dynasty, they were like, we're going to bring back Nick Cage as Johnny, wasn't it Johnny Storm, as whatever the hell his name is, the Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider, yeah.
Tobey Maguire was going to come back as Spider. They were going to like really cast the net wide for the multiverse of it all. And they very well still probably are going to. I know they will.
They could do that so easily, though, for Secret Wars when they finally get to that, because they could have the Beyonder just say, I'm grabbing the best heroes from all of these different universes rather than somehow doing some sort of multiverse thing when we're just finally getting done with the multiverse shit.
But it's coming back in a big way, baby. The Fantastic Four movie, they're in a multiverse. They've already more or less spoiled that movie doesn't take place on Earth 616. I wish it was 666. I wish that the Fantastic Four were part of this to begin with, because this is too big of a retcon at this point. Galactus, so Fantastic Four end up in our MCU somehow, clearly. Again, like that's not me spoiling it. That's them showing us the mechanism that we're going to be working with here. It's almost like Infinity War. We knew it was going to have time travel in it. There's no way to fix it otherwise. They've made it very clear going into the movie, like, it has to be time travel. So Fantastic Four has to be multiverse hopping.
It scares me too because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 writers on that, and that's not even counting Kirby and Net Ditko for that one. That was Lee and Kirby, wasn't it? That did that one? Yeah, but guys, there's a lot of writers on that. There are a lot of writers on this as well, and there's a lot of writers on Thunderbolts too. It's okay. There's 1, 2. Oh, I guess just 3. Poor Lee Sung-jin's name was breaking. So I thought it was 2 people at first. So only 3 writers on that. So we'll see how that one goes.
Well, and Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret War are being written by half of the writing team of Infinity War and Endgame. I don't know. Maybe Doomsday. You know what? Doomsday, they're just going to... Oh, God. I'm calling it now, okay? Can I call it now? It's just going to be Dr. Doom's movie, right? Like... It's going to be, oh my God, it's going to be a Robert Downey Jr. thing. The whole movie, right? The whole movie. Whole movie's just going to be a Robert Downey Jr. thing.
Do you think it's going to be him as both Iron Man and Dr. Doom? Like him fighting himself? And then he can make remarks about his outfits. Green is not your color.
Here is my prediction. And this is me predicting this. And maybe I'll be right. Maybe I'll be wrong. But this is my theory. Dr. Doom in this movie and in this universe is just going to be Tony Stark. Dr. Doom is just going to be Tony. He's literally Tony Stark, like literally Tony Stark. Like it's just another multiverse version of Tony Stark that's a bad guy. Because Dr. Doom is a rich fucking guy. Like Dr. Doom is just inverse of Tony Stark.
Tony Stark created Ultron. We forget about that stuff. Like in this universe, he created Ultron. He wanted to, wrap the Earth in a suit of armor. And he was essentially the bad guy for good reasons in Civil War. This is not that big of a stretch of the imagination that, yeah, there's another Tony Stark. Had he just gone a little bit more to one side or the other, could just walk right into Dr. Doom's shoes. Like the whole thing of him wearing a mask isn't going to be because of a scar on his face and his incredible vanity that he has. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I think it's just going to be more like, oh, I need face protection or something like that. And then that's going to be the big reveal when he takes off that mask.
Or maybe they don't know that it's Tony Stark. Literally, what if it's just like that universe doesn't realize that the big villain is Tony Stark? That the billionaire philanthropist is actually a villain too. Like you have Bruce Wayne as Batman. Could a rich guy not just... look, Lex Luthor is a villain, but he's also super rich and everybody knows who he is, but he's also a villain. So that's what it's going to be. If you ask me, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're going to do something more creative than that. But when I saw that they were casting Robert Downey Jr., my mind goes to inverse of Iron Man, and you've got Dr. Doom in a lot of ways. And if you want someone to move the needle and the needle's not being moved anymore, bringing Robert Downey Jr. back, pretty big thing to do. They got a big pop, as they would say in the wrestling industry from that. Sustained, though, I don't know.
I can just hear RDJ ripping on the name selection. Dr. Doom, it's a little too on the nose or whatever. And like my alias was Victor Von Doom, and then I went with Dr. Doom. Nobody could tell that it was me or something. It was like, it never made sense. Your name is Von Doom, and now you're Dr. Doom? Okay. I didn't go to Doom Medical School for 4 years just to be called Mr. Doom. Thank you very much.
I want there to be some fun with where they go with this. And again, I think what we will be seeing with Avengers Doomsday is going to become imminently more obvious after Fantastic Four. Thunderbolts. Maybe Thunderbolts will. Thunderbolts is the end of Phase 5. This is the second to last movie in Phase 5. Phase 4 and Phase 5 have been pretty all over the place.
And that's the thing is I don't even feel these phases right now. It just feels like it's all just been, I will grant that Phase 4 ends with Spider-Man Far From Home because that's where it feels like it naturally ends after Endgame. But then from Black Widow on, it's just, hello, we're all over the map. And we have characters that keep dropping out because don't forget that the guy that played Shang-Chi also wants nothing to do with coming back and playing Shang-Chi. And I'm just like, is the check not big enough? Like, why are you having problems with this? But okay, yeah, that's your choice, man. We will recast. Do not worry. Next time, baby.
Yeah, there's been no cohesive thought or idea to any of this. And what's crazy is like there is one name in that producer slot through all this, Kevin Feige, and maybe he's just giving it up a little bit. I don't know, like the quality of everything through phase 4 to the beginning of phase 4 it's quite good. And then phase 4 on is just rough. And this is us looking back on it like, nah, these movies were considered rough for the most part when they came out. And phase 5, even more so. Quantumania, Guardians of the Galaxy, Marvel's Deadpool, Wolverine, Captain America, and Thunderbolt. Wow. What a mix of things.
Yeah, other than Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man No Way Home, some of it Doctor Strange in the Multiverse, I love Raimi's direction so much, but at the same time, I'm just like, this story really doesn't make any sense as far as her looking for these kids and tearing apart the universe. I'm like, I'm sure there's another multiverse that has these 2 kids in it. Just go for it. Find those kids, and this whole movie could be over within 5 minutes.
Another movie that almost could have been a TV show, like a TV movie. This should have been the second season of Captain America, or Hawkeye and Falcon and Winter Soldier, whatever they would have called this, Captain America and Falcon.
Hawkeye and Trapper.
I'm glad we sit down to do these MCU things. It's been almost a year. It was May of last year. We did Deadpool, Wolverine. So that's been a long time since we talked about new MCU stuff. But we got 2 more coming up in quick succession in May and then July. And then we have to wait almost another year for the big boy. I'm curious, not hopeful, because this was not a great opening salvo for the first of the 3 movies we're getting this year. Especially after it went 3 movies in a year. Because that's phase 5, guys. They loaded us up good.
Until we come back in May to talk about Thunderbolt's asterisk. Chris, what are you working on these days?
I am working on movie podcasts and other pop culture audio diversions over at weirdingwaymedia.com, where my show, The Kulturecast, can be found. Father Malone's show, Midnight Viewing, can be found, where Susan Lambert and Sharon Johnson's show, 80s TV Ladies, can be found. Great shows can be found. All the shows with the people that we work with and work on, for the most part, can be found at weirdingwaymedia.com. So that's where. Other than Rankin' on Bond, which can be found on Patreon, yours and mine, respectively, patreon.com/Kulturecast and patreon.com/ProjectionMove.
Well, I want to thank Chris for joining me today, and I want to thank everybody for listening. I would definitely encourage everybody to go over to those Patreons and make a donation to be part of the community. Until we get to ultimate power and 12 million downloads a month, Chris, we're going to be fighting the good fight. But after that, the Projection Booth and the Kulturecast will take over the world.
Our guardian star lost all his glow the day that I lost you. He lost all his glitter the day you said no, and his silver turned to blue. Like him I am doubtful that your love is true. But if you decide to call on me, ask for Mr. Blue. I'm Mr. Blue. Wow, wow. When you say you love me, Mr. Blue, then prove it by going out on the slide, proving your love isn't true. Mr. Blue, I'm Mr. Blue. Wow, wow. When you say you're sorry, Mr. Blue, then turn around, heading for the lights of town, hurting me through and through. Call me Mr. Blue. I stay at home at night, ride by the phone at night, ride by the but phone. You won't call, and I won't hurt my pride. Call me Mr. I won't tell you while you paint the town, Mr. a bright red to turn it upside down. I'm painting it too, but I'm painting it blue. Call me Mr. Blue.